Welcome to Regen Room. Today we are speaking with Kirli Saunders. And before I start this conversation, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm calling in from Gubbi Gubbi country, which is on the Sunshine Coast. To the north, closer up near Gympie, we've got the Kabi Kabi people. To the south, the Gubbi Gubbi. And then out to the west on the Blackall Ranges, we've got the Jinnabari people as well. So I just want to acknowledge my place here, having this conversation, and also all the relationships that take place in this country that I'm so fortunate to walk on. So, yeah, thank you, Kirli, for being here.
Oh, Didgerigura. I'm up on Yaru country, so up near Cable Beach here. And, yeah, also echoing my deep thanks for the Dewey, the dreaming that's woven us together to have this yarn, but also to all of the ancestral spirits here who have cared for this country for all time, and for all of those elders and custodians continuing to care for country on all countries that are listening to this yarn today. Yeah, thank you. It's so good to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you, Kirli. And so for those who don't know, Kirli Saunders is an author and has written a bunch of really inspiring books and won some awards for that. You just mentioned to me before this call that you're actually visiting your publisher at the moment, Magala Books. Is that right?
Yeah, up here with Magabala. Yeah, we landed for the Corrugated Lines Festival, which is a celebration of First Nation stories and storytellers coming together. So yeah, they're special people, and it's lovely to be able to connect with mob everywhere you go. Very grateful to be here hearing stories on this land.
Beautiful. Yeah, there must be a whole bunch of great stories being told at the moment where you are, right?
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is if you've been to Broome, it's a particular energy. There's a lot of melting moments of people coming together to share those yarns. So, yeah, special place to be.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, that's great. Cool. Can you let us know, like, what kind of inspired you to start telling stories and to start writing specifically?
Yeah, I was studying English at school in year 11 when I had an English teacher slide some poetry across the table, like, "Hey, girls, you should read these." And they were written by dead white guys and had nothing to do with me, like very exceptionally talented dead white guys. But I felt culturally they didn't align or didn't reveal anything in my cultural identity and within my community and country in the way that our family had spoken about land. And so I wanted to continue to read more widely and create works that celebrated our voices and our stories. And I started with The Incredible Freedom Machines, which was a poem that turned into a picture book, and sailed that off to Matt Otley, who's an incredible illustrator, and said, "Hey, Matt, you don't know me and I don't know you, but will you be my illustrator? Will you illustrate this work? It's about freedom and adventuring across country and being connected with the land, and about finding our own path." And he said, "Curls, I love this. Let's go and take it to Scholastic." And that was the start for me. And since it's been poetry that has underpinned all of my work, and Kindred is my poetry collection that's out for young adults and adults, and Bindi is my verse novel, which I'm going to speak a little bit more about today because it definitely hones in on regeneration, traditional ways of caring for country, honouring those old people, our languages and land, and the experience of young people, young First Nations people in Australia, and how important it is that we keep and maintain those connections and continue to provide them for our kids.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Actually, I'm actually at my granddad's house right now, and I've been spending a bit of time with him during lockdown. And he's got these placemats that are like like Jolly Swagman kind of stuff, and there's a lot of bush poetry, but like from the dead white guys, and like there's some beautiful poetry that he's got. But I was actually speaking to him about this conversation that I knew I was going to be having with you, and I knew that I was going to be learning and discussing with you about different kinds of poetry, and that he might not have heard about before. And it's just a nice contrast to have that as well, like, and to see these, like, the work starting to emerge and starting to be respected, like, where obviously it's so far overdue. And I know when I was in school, like, there was no like First Nations education, like the narrative there was just non-existent, and I was kind of was eager to learn, but it just wasn't there. And so I'm really stoked to be talking to you now. So thank you so much for offering up some of your time and your wisdom. And I know that recently you put a lot of work into a campaign called Regenerate, which is to get more First Nations authors and illustrators and creatives back into schools that have been damaged by floods and bushfires. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did that go?
Yeah, that was, I think all the good things happen when the right people meet at the right place in the right time on the right country. And I was up on Gadigal country yarning with some elders from Birrupai country. So my family are Gunai from East Gippsland in Victoria, and my mum was born on Yuin country. I was born on Gunagara country. My grandfather's side of Birrupai moved on to Laparoo, so that Gadigal Darawal country there. And all of those nations were affected by the fires when they'd moved through, and then were, continually affected by flooding as well. And I was working with some teachers who had experienced severe trauma and were just absolute powerhouses, maintaining classrooms for children who had to be educated, outside of their normal educational spaces. And shout out to all the teachers out there, you're doing amazing things for our bubs this year, especially, and last. And while I was speaking with these beautiful teachers, I said, what can I do? How can I help? And they said, well, you write great stories. Why don't you get more stories in our classroom? I'm like, righto, let's do it. And overnight, I just created this Regenerate campaign, which was a GoFundMe to get black books in the hands of children in fire and flood affected communities. And donations have gone now, yay, exciting, directly to Magpie Books. So we raised $10,500, and that will allow for books to be packaged up and sent off to those schools so that our young people who are continuing to heal and, move through pandemic on top of those environmental and ecological disasters, and they're still rebuilding their families and communities. So it's my hope that these stories will offer some solidarity and say, hey, we're still here, we're still thinking of you, your voices and your stories matter. There's this passage at the end of Vinny that talks about persevering, about how, like our old people, through it all we'll always persevere. And I just wanted to offer that up to our kids, that you got this and we're here with you. So it's been amazing watching everyone's generosity, backing the campaign. And I'm just really grateful to be able to offer something like that, to be able to support those stories to go into our classrooms. And I can't wait to see what that impact will have, kids reading, First Nations children especially, because our mob do live in a lot of those areas, how those kids will feel strengthened reading black stories.
Yeah, I think it's definitely so important. And like you said, there's so much stuff going on at the moment around the world that gets a bit confusing and gets a bit hard. So, when you can get like stories that show, cultural understanding and in positive and beauty and connection, and little things like that really do make all the difference at the moment, don't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm really thinking of everyone back home. My family are also all in lockdown, and I'm locked away from them in WA. So I'm missing everybody. I know it's a hard time that we're going through, and I think fires and floods and pandemics have really proven to us, and now what's going on overseas, that connection is more important now than it ever has been. And connection with our outside and sacred and wild places. And I love looking at you in the garden right now, and please thank you, Pop, for me. He's got a bloody good garden there, hasn't he? Those beautiful flowers.
He actually does. He loves his garden so much. I'll give you a little. He's got the whole thing going on.
Oi. Right. And those connections, those moments of walking outside and connecting with our trees, with the plants, with the birds, the ants, the ocean, they're really important at the moment. And
yeah, he's got a couple of birds that come out the back. There's a few rosellas that he's got a little water, like a bird bath out the back, and rosellas and magpies. He really does, and he's got a relationship with them, And I always ask him about that, because I find it interesting, the generational kind of gap there. I'm always like, how's this relationship with the birds that you've got? What do you think about that? Because I know he's traveled around the country a lot as well, so it's always interesting to get his perspective on it. There is that understanding, and it's just nice to see that and to witness that and to go, okay, that's what we're missing, and we need to encourage that.
Yeah, there's little birds that are hopping around behind you. You can't see them, but little sweeties. I've got also a big mechanical bird, a big plane in the sky above me, so I've just muted and unmuted myself, sorry.
No worries.
But yeah, my dad does the same thing. He spends a lot of time feeding the kookaburras and the magpies, and they're something that's keeping him going. There's this beautiful synergy between us and the earth, and energizing that can happen when we have relationship and connection with country. And so much of my work centers around that. And Bindi, is talking about this 11-year-old girl who grows up on country that's affected by fire, but the relationship she forms with the black cockatoo. And on Gundungurra country, there are threatened species. And we've been working to plant shirks to make sure that they're always there. And shirks, of course, are one of the first thing that goes once a fire whips through country. So, yeah, I think there's so many ways we can be connected and caring. Yeah, planting more shirks.
For sure. Yeah. There's actually a young guy up here on the Sunshine Coast who he's like 11. His name is Spencer, and he's like fighting really hard because of black cockatoos up here. What are they called? The glossies. He's like campaign for Save the Glossies. And he's like this 11-year-old kid. He's just such a powerhouse. And yeah, there's like a whole bunch of these kids who are like really rallying to protect the habitat of the glossies up on the coast, like a bit further north to where I am now. And, it's so inspiring to see like people of all ages really prioritizing and valuing that connection and the relationships with the world and with the country and with all the other life forms that we share this place with.
Yeah. And how I just immediately am so drawn to Spencer's story. I'm like, tell me more, kiddo. How can I support you? Because the glossies are the same bird that we're protecting on Gundungurra country, and the same on Kangaroo Island. And over here, Burlu in Perth, Wajukbuja, they've got Karak or Karakin, the black cockatoo here too. There's everywhere we go, there's sacred species that we can be doing small actions to work towards protect. This kid is taking it upon himself to be like, I'm going to plant more trees. I'm going to have these yarns and raise awareness. And I think that's one thing that I've found with talking with friends and family that can be tricky about isolation and lockdown. Not only are you disconnected from the things that you love or that you find relationship with, but that you don't know how to protect it from the inside. And I think supporting, regreening, all those kinds of tree planting operations for making sure that our wild spaces continue to expand and aren't minimized is one way that we can totally contribute even when we're locked away and inside. And Red Room Poetry have a poem forest going at the moment where you write a poem and they will plant a tree for you in the Australian Botanical Gardens. So there's, like incredible things. And I'm sure you have loads of other ideas on that too, how you can be, how you can still be contributing even when you're inside. But I'm very aware of that at the moment and trying to support people to find those things. And I think researching in your local community is a big one, like find the Spencers, support the Spencers. Yeah. For
sure. Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure to share Spencer's, because Spencer's got a GoFundMe page and a whole campaign. So when we release this, I'll make sure that Spencer's getting a mention in there for sure. As well as the poetry, the Red Room Poetry.
Yeah, their poem forest.
Well.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, cool.
So on that vein of like, how can we connect for and care for country? I know in the book that you wrote, Bindi, with the how did she go about that, and what things does Bindi have to teach us about how we can better be connected to country?
Yeah, I guess can I read a poem from Bindi?
For sure, I'd love that.
Okay? Yeah. So this one, I guess, is an example from the book. So Bindi is planting she oaks with the Auntie Lindy, who comes to her school, and with the efforts to try and maintain these dietary foods for the glossies who only eat one food, who only eat she oaks. And that's one thing that she does. She's involved in cultural dance, so she dances to welcome the spirit back, to welcome the rain back, to keep those plants and birds going. And there's a synergy between, or a relationship between, the rain and the bird and the fire that you and people talk a lot about. So it's not my story to tell, but hit them up. Particularly Ada Webster and Jacob Morris told me that story. And they're doing incredible work with the Fire Sticks mob, regenerating country down south. So the exploration of cultural burning also comes into this book. How would cultural burns allow us to care for country so that these catastrophic fires don't hit our communities in the same way? She talks about the grey water that her family are using, to take care of her plants on her property. And I'm working on the second book at the moment, and it's all about sustainability and being mindful of the ways that we're eating food from the ocean, or how we're catching our yabbies in the creek, and why there's less now than there were before. So I guess they're things that we're all thinking about maybe, and that young people are seeing, and pulling the connections between those two things. So this is from Bindi. At school on a cloudy Tuesday, Auntie Lindy sits our class in a circle by the lake. Facing inwards, she talks about respect in a space like this, about the timelessness of our meeting and the importance of caring for the country that you sit on and the country you belong to. Auntie Lindy explains, listening deeply means hearing from the heart, hearing with more than ears. She tells us of Gadal, a butjan with symbolic colours, black, red and yellow. Her dui, sacred to our nation. A totem butjan, one that sings in the karat and speaks of the can-be. We pause to hear her calls from far away. Nawara! 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 Hands to the auri, we join Auntie planting she oaks. We palm their seed pods, rough and symmetrical. She says that they will keep us safe and connect us to the old people. We drip water at the base of trunks to be. We erect small sentries to protect the seedlings. I hope that they will withstand the drought and welcome the butjan and their karat. So in this poem, there's this conversation of caring for the country that you sit on and the country that you belong to. So my family are born onto Gundungurra country, and my mum was taken there as a child, removed from her family. So Gundungurra country is, and the language that you witness within the book is that language taught to me by Auntie Val Mulcahy and Trish Levitt. And so there's caring for the country you belong to, but there's also that you sit on, but also the country you belong to. So perhaps you come from another Aboriginal community or another place that you can also be caring for and being responsible for and honouring. This budjan, this bird, the Gadal, the black cockatoo, the glossy black cockatoo, has a dui, the dreaming, that is sacred to their nation, to their family. And it's one that sings in the rain and speaks of the fire. So there's that relationship culturally. And I think the awareness of the land that you sit on, the dreaming stories, the cultural underpinnings, and acknowledging the importance of particular animals or species and the relationships within those things, that kind of wisdom allows you to understand what you should be caring for, how you should be caring for those things. And then she's planting shirks with her auntie, but there's the learning from her auntie as well. And I think we have so much to learn from our Aboriginal communities in our areas. And, I love hearing the work that you're doing as well, and all the yarns that you're holding with mob from countries all over, different perspectives. And I encourage you to just research in your local area what's an environmental or ecological project that you can get behind. How can you be supporting Aboriginal people in your local area to care for country? And then what is the reciprocity there? How can you learn and also be engaged once you're supporting those things? Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. And that was beautiful. Really, really beautiful. So thank you so much for that. Firstly, what really landed was that listening from the heart, and how we can, I feel like, even with the birds that come to visit here, it's how can we drop into listening from the heart to those birds instead of just listening to the noises and stuff? It's what's underneath all of that, and then that, for me, that's been a practice that I've been kind of trying to bring into my life over the last 18 months, and something that I try to have conversations with other people about to encourage them to listen in that way as well. And secondly, definitely encourage more people to do what you said around finding those Spencers in your local area, or any kind of community activities that are happening in the local area that have that intention of caring for the country in a deep way, in a reciprocal way, because there are a lot of people out there doing that good work, but I find that sometimes you do have to go and search for it. So there needs to be that ownership of I'm gonna go now beyond the word, and I'm gonna actually take action to go okay, where can I help? In the times that we are in at the moment, which are really confusing, we really need people to step up and to go out of their way to actually engage and be involved and support that, support the community and support the country really actively. So thanks for dropping those things in for us.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, and thank you for the mirror and the openness to it. It's lovely watching these birds dip and sway behind you while you say those things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, I got a couple more questions for you. One question, over your career and this is why I like talking to different people, because they have a diverse, way of seeing things. So specific, like this is regen room, we're talking about regeneration. As a creative, I feel like we're in a time at the moment where we need creativity, because we need creative solutions, because we have to move from like what we're doing currently to what we're going to be able to do in the future. And that's going to involve like a whole bunch of different stuff, like things that have happened in the past. We're like, okay, we take some of this from that mob, we'll take some of this from these guys, and like maybe they were doing something good. Like as a creative, what are some of the things that you've learned that have been really helpful for you over your career in keeping up with those kind of inspired, with that inspired work?
Yeah, I think you definitely get to bow a bird as an artist. You know, you get to go and kind of like collect a little bit of blue stuff over here and a little bit of blue stuff over here and pull them together and make this gorgeous bower, which is an amalgamation of all those things. So I agree. I think, you know, part of being creative is being adaptive and is taking inspiration, wisdom, guidance, thoughts, ideas, and melding them all together in one place. But you get to have that joy of moving around and adopting and learning. So definitely those things. Collaboration. I love being collaborative in my creative process. I love sitting down with people and yarning like, hey, how'd you do that thing? What'd you learn? Awesome. Do you want to co-create something? What does this look like to move together in the next space? What are you working on? How can I help you with that? And I think it's a Western paradigm to want to get solo and to just do it on your own. And I grew up, you know, in a very privileged community. I have not one Caucasian parent, and I can fall into that trope sometimes. So as an artist, I get to challenge that. And the visual poetry that I'm working on for my returning exhibition at the moment, which is out in December, hopefully, we'll see. Who knows what's going to happen with galleries. But that at the moment has been this exquisite dance with understanding, you know, how to work with other people, how to trust my own voice. So I think that's come as being an artist. The ability to express in multiple forms. I take poetry, but it turns into picture books and plays and art and music, and sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's, you know, baking brownies, but there's always some kind of creative expression that comes from this burning desire to want to share something. And then the interaction between the 60,000-year-old culture that I've come from and the place that I sit in as a contemporary First Nations Aboriginal person today on Yaru land. You know, there's so many different realms that I get to move within as an artist, and I think that's something that we can implement across many different spaces. But yeah, I suppose like working in human-centered design with my partner in consulting when we're working with organizations, it's also a similar kind of thing. It's all of that creative, adaptive, collaborative thinking, reflecting on old new ways that you're talking about. But yeah, those are the beauties of being an artist. I would say it's also allowed me to get past perfectionism, which, yeah, like I think I came out of school thinking things had to be, that they had to be perfect and good wasn't enough, and that there was no point in trying if it wasn't going to be that. And I think perfectionism can stop our progress as a society and community. And I quite often come up against people saying, oh, I'm so frozen or afraid to do this wrong, particularly around cultural protocol. Like, I definitely don't want to get it wrong. I'll be like, right, well, have you collaborated? Have you asked those questions? Have you been flexible? You know, have you tried to find different ways to do this? Have you made sure that you're looking at old ways and new ways? And then, you know, have you tried? Have you tried to give it a go? And to show up honestly and vulnerably.
I resonate pretty strongly with that, actually, because I've done a bit of work with especially one fella in Sydney called Warren Roberts. He's a Dunghutti man who runs Yarn Australia, and he, you know, he's like a mentor of mine now, and he gives me a lot of. I always go to him, and he's really, really generous in holding space for me and then offering support. And he always says, like, you got to just go for it, Josh. Like, you got to just try. Like, if you make mistakes, then that's fine. Like, that's the only way that you learn. And yeah, like, so for me, having these conversations, like, you know, like multicultural conversations about these big, like, swirling topics, I'm kind of like, and to be honest, being like a young white guy, I'm like, just holding on, you know, like, okay, I know this is something that needs to be done, but like, you know, trying to, just move past that fear of like, okay, how can I show up here and just vulnerable and open and have this conversation and deepen understanding, for whoever is involved.
Oh, was a great mentor. Hey, if you don't know Warren's work, check him out because he's doing amazing things, particularly in the Redfern community at the moment around housing and accessibility. And I think those conversations are so important, the ones that we have with mentors and guides. I've got lots of those. We need more of those, and you can be one of those too. Hey, yeah,
that's it. Yeah, he's actually working on some really amazing stuff that hopefully will unfold over the next few years. But Warren's work is amazing. Yarn Australia, I'll make sure to I'm always kind of giving him a push as well. It's so good. Yeah. And final question: if you had one piece of advice for Australians right now, what would that be?
I think it would be, and the words aren't right, so this is a first draft, but something along the lines of prioritizing connection, be that with the tree, the bird, the ocean, other people. I think we're in a really curious place at the moment where the world is trying to make us separate and keep us in isolation, or to look at things happening in the world and feel like you can feel frozen. And I think connection is such an antidote to being frozen and feeling like you can't be helpful or you can't aid in change. And the opposite is true.
I think there's definitely more room for connection. Not sure what's happening with the audio here.
Sorry, my audio just dropped out, but I'm back. Hi.
That's all right. We should be good. Yeah, I think you're right. Prioritizing connection is like definitely something that's important. And if you're watching this and you're in lockdown, then maybe it's about being creative with how you're able to connect with and who you're able to connect with. It doesn't have to be a person. Maybe it is a plant, or maybe it is the bird that comes to visit every day, or like that kookaburra that sings out in the morning. Maybe it's something like that. So just staying open to the connection. I think that's a great one. Thank you, Kirli.
Didjuri Kuranini, and for Naganagula with me too, for walking and working with me. It's we're so lucky that we get to have these yarns over Zoom. I think it's been a beautiful thing that's come out of this pandemic, is that there's other ways of being connected. And my dad's a staunch advocate for watering the plants. When I was a kid, I'd never get on like, Dad, what are you doing always watering these plants? Why? Like, there's enough water here. They don't need more. But he's like, I got to go have a yarn with them in the afternoon. Curl's got to go see all the waratahs. And if you get stuck, just go water the plants, have a yarn with them. They know what's good.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Kirli. I really, really appreciate you coming on and having this yarn and sharing with us. It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks for having me. We'll yarn soon. Hey, enjoy those beautiful birds.
Thank you, Kirli. Cheers. Awesome.